Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
You're listening to the Tamar Yonah Show here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. And today we're going to be speaking about Iran. Why do we speak about Iran? You know, for some it might be a very boring subject. Oh, they're far away, just falling asleep and snoring. But there was an attack the other day on a ship that killed international people. And I think I'll entitle this show, Iran Won't Float Your Boat. Will their leadership now sink? The Iranian regime attacked an Israeli-owned ship, and they killed 2 people. This is a serious attack. One of them was a UK citizen. And according to the news reports, which we're going to be going over today and finding out exactly what happened, what the consequences, more importantly, what the consequences might be, because this is not now just against Israel, but the United States is concerned about it. U.S. Secretary of State Blinken stated, quote, "We are confident that Iran conducted this attack, which killed 2 innocent people, using one-way explosive UAVs, which are unmanned aerial vehicles. And it's a lethal capability that is increasingly being employed throughout the region." And in Jerusalem, Israel knows with certainty that the attack was done by Iran on the Mercer ship, and Israel, or it will be responded to, Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said on Sunday, quote, "I determine with absolute certainty Iran carried out the attack against the ship," unquote, Bennett said. "The intelligence evidence for this exists, and we expect the international community will make it clear to the Iranian regime that they have made a serious mistake." That was by the Israeli Prime Minister. And this new story came in. Do I have time? The UK government held a COBRA emergency meeting at the level of officials over the weekend in a sign of the serious focus on the tanker attack and how to respond. Sky News understands there's not yet been a COBRA attended by ministers, which is what happens in gravest of crises. We'll be right back.
How did a nice Jewish girl from Delaware end up living in Israel? Shalom, I'm Natalie Sapinski. Join me on my show, Returning Home. Meet different people who have moved to Israel. Hear their personal stories, their highs, their lows, and everything in between. Each week, we talk to experts on immigration and the process of moving to Israel. Listen to Returning Home every Thursday, only on Israel News Talk Radio.
Hello, I am Walter Bingham, host of The Walter Bingham File. Look out for a very special, exclusive program coming soon here on Israel News Talk Radio with young people who have left their ultra-Orthodox families and lifestyle and speak frankly and openly with me about their reasons for entering the secular world. Do they believe in God? How has that change affected them? What is their relationship with their parents? And why do they deliberately eat ham sandwiches? That and much more in this searching investigation into their innermost souls. Don't miss it. Coming soon on the Walter Bingham File, here on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, we are back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and we're talking about an attack that took place last week in which 2 people were killed on an Israeli-managed ship. This is important because it's not just an attack on Israel, but 2 non-Israeli citizens of other countries were killed. One of them, a UK citizen from the United Kingdom. This opens up an international response now. And as I was saying in the last segment, that the U.S. government held a COBRA emergency meeting at the level of officials over the weekend in a sign of the serious focus on the tanker attack and how to respond. Sky News understands and that there's not yet been a COBRA attended by ministers, which is what happens in gravest of crises. Let me just read you another few headlines before we go to our guest. Iran denies being responsible for the attack on an Israeli-managed ship. Iranian foreign minister spokesperson says, quote, the Zionist regime has created insecurity, terror, and violence, even though they use this deadly drone. And some other concerning things about Iran, because now the UK may react here now, and Israel, the United States is concerned. As I said, I read out to you in the beginning of the show what U.S. Secretary of State Blinken said, that this is a very serious thing, which using these UAVs, which are unmanned aerial vehicles, they're like drones with a lethal capability, and it's increasingly being employed throughout the region. All right. So with all this going on, where is it going to take us? We have some other concerns as well, because Iran seems to be bleeding into the surrounding borders of Israel. We already know that it's working hand in hand with the Hezbollah in Lebanon, which is on Israel's northern border. And as I've done a show a couple of weeks ago, I believe it was, that Jordan's King Abdullah has now joined forces with Iran. It says here, Jordan is now allies with Iran. It's official. And this is from the Besa Center. The King of Jordan has apparently reached the conclusion that opening the door to the extremist Shiite regime in Iran will save his country, Jordan, from its many crises, while it might allay those crises in the short term. This alliance with Iran will likely end with Jordan sinking into a state of total Iranian domination, as did Lebanon, Iraq, which it borders between Jordan and Iran is Iraq, and Yemen. So the tentacles are spreading out by Iran, and they are reaching Israel's northern border now through Jordan's cooperation and allying with Iran, Israel's longest eastern border. And then we have, of course, the other countries, Yemen, which is going against the Saudis, which affects oil prices as well and affects the stability of the Middle East, because if Iran is successful in toppling Saudi Arabia through their proxy in Yemen, then this could make Iran even stronger, taking over those oil fields, etc. So with no further ado, let's interview our guest. We have joining us Aaron Braunstein. He's a former U.S. Foreign Service officer. He's worked in Washington, Egypt, Tunisia, and Muslim West Africa for 30 years as part of the United States Foreign Service. Today, he heads the Jewish Covenant Alliance, and you can visit his website at www.covenantalliance.org. Welcome to the show, Aaron Braunstein.
Thank you very, excuse me, I have a bit of a morning cough here, but thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on with you again on a very intriguing topic for today. And I really appreciate your putting your finger right on breaking news. It surely is breaking news, and it has many, many ramifications.
All right, where would you like to start?
Yes. Well, it's let's first talk about the implications of this attack on a civilian commercial ship. Number one, that in itself is an outrage. Number two, for the first time, there are actually 2 dead from an Iranian attack, and the ship, it's interesting, many factors, including many factors that are secret, that Israel has been able to share with England and with the United States and others, that this was unmistakably an Iranian-backed attack. And even more important than the word Iran is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which pretty much controls Iran and on every level, including intelligence, and also controls Iran's operations throughout the entire Fertile Crescent, sweeping from Iraq through Syria, and it's into Lebanon, down the coast to Gaza, with the soft underbelly being Jordan, that you so rightly mentioned. So it's clear that the sophistication of the attack on a moving target could only have been done by Iran's growing development of drone technology. And this is very troubling from an operational perspective for Israel, and not just for Israel, for all the Western countries. And it's one more element in Iran's program for blackmail of the West and isolation of Israel. Let me just first comment on the news report with regard to Jordan.
Yes.
Whatever else the pundits feel about where Jordan is heading, this is clearly an attempt to test Saudi Arabia. Israel is being surrounded, but also Saudi Arabia is surrounded. And under the table, at the side of the table, Israel and Saudi Arabia are working very closely, or have been working very closely. The Abraham Accords with Bahrain and with the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, would not have taken place without a green or yellow light from Saudi Arabia. Now, the process is a process of diplomatic and military testing of Israel and the West. First of all, this takes place in a period of United States military withdrawal. We see what's happening in Afghanistan every day as the security situation for the people of Afghanistan collapses. We see the attacks on American facilities in Iraq at one level, to see how desperate the United States is to move forward with the renewal of a nuclear pact with Iran under even these circumstances. Are the Iranians going to see a situation where the United States will at all costs move forward for a disastrous nuclear agreement as Israel sees it? Or will it back off and say that any agreements with Iran have to be, first of all, iron tight and ship tight, and number two, they have to take into consideration Iran's entire geostrategic attack on the West. Israel's also being tested here. A new government, is it hard? Is it soft? Will Prime Minister Bennett follow through on his threats on his warning to bring any Iranian threats home to Tehran itself, to the head of the octopus, or not? Is Israel going to back off now? To what extent? Also testing the Western alliance. To what extent is the West, i.e. America and England in this case, going to stand by Israel? The Iranians want to know that too. And there's a new president coming in on Thursday, And also one has to ask the question, is the Revolutionary Guard Corps testing the new Iranian leadership and showing it that it will determine what the geostrategic position of Iran is vis-a-vis Israel and the entire Middle East. Is the new President Raisi working hand in glove with the Revolutionary Guard in this regard? There are a number of questions, therefore, that are posed and placed on the table. First question is, to what extent is the Revolutionary Guard Corps out of control in this regard? Or, one put it another way, totally in control of the situation?
Okay, hold it right there, Aaron, because the music is on. That means we have to go for a break. And I want to tell everybody, when we get back, we're going to be talking more about this issue. This is very serious. It's hit international interests now specifically, and this is going to bring repercussions. We'll be right back.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, we are back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and we're talking about new developments in the Middle East that are involving the international community. As we said, there was an attack on an Israeli-owned ship last week. 2 people were killed. One of them was a UK citizen, which has gotten the UK, the United Kingdom, involved, and their government has met. And the United States also is concerned. Israel, of course, is concerned. And we are seeing that Iran using, how did they make this attack? By the way, if you've seen a picture of the ship, it's pretty daunting to see the huge hole in this. It looked like an iron ship, and this huge hole in it. Very, very unnerving to see something like that. I was, at least when I saw the picture. And this is extremely serious. And Iran is saying that they didn't do it, but they're using what's called unmanned aerial vehicles, which are basically like drones with a lethal capability, and they're increasingly employing this throughout the region as they reach out their tentacles through Lebanon towards Israel, the little Satan, and Jordan now through Israel, the little Satan, and Iraq, they've already gone through. And also Yemen, which is reaching its tentacles into Saudi Arabia. They want to take Saudi Arabia as well with their oil fields and be able to control the mass amount of oil that comes from that country, which is going to affect prices all over the world. And this and then who would that affect mostly? Also the United States, the big Satan, right? You should be concerned in America. I know that Iran is far away from you geographically, and it's not in your sphere of newspapers. Perhaps they're not reporting on it so much, but they hate you. And they constantly call for your demise. They always say death to America. When they say death to Israel, the little Satan, they say death to America, the big Satan. So just because you don't realize that there are people who hate you, people who are trying to get nuclear weapons to destroy you and to become the world power, this doesn't mean that it's not happening. And you should be concerned, and you should be concerned of what your new president, Joseph Biden, is doing, where he is being weak on Iran, where he is trying to build them up as nice old gentlemanly men. They're not. They are mullahs. They want your throat. If you won't, these are the type of people we are dealing with, Sharia law, et cetera, et cetera. So you should be concerned and you should be aware with what's going on. All right. I want to bring us back now to our guest, Aaron Braunstein. Aaron, in the last part of the show, you were talking to us, and I had to cut you off, so go ahead. Aaron? Okay, let's try. Let's try to get Aaron back. Aaron, Aaron, talk? Aaron? I think the mic maybe is gone. Okay, we're going to try to get Aaron Braunstein back. So these are some of the things that are happening. I want to read you something else. Now, in Lebanon, I did a show on this also a few weeks ago. Lebanon is collapsing. Its economy is in a free fall. And according to this news report that was just put out yesterday by France 24 News, it says here, Lebanon's middle class joins mass exodus or finds creative ways to survive at home. They're leaving the country. They're middle class. I guess the rich already have their homes in Paris and other places. But now the middle class is leaving. They're trying to survive. They don't want to be there with the huge explosion that took place a year ago when their port blew up because apparently the Hezbollah, who is sponsored by Iran, by the way, was storing a huge weaponry or dangerous materials there in a place where there are so many civilians. Do we have Aaron back with us? We don't have Aaron back with us. Okay, so we're trying to get Aaron back. In the meantime, let me go through this article here. It says here, thousands of middle-class Lebanese families have moved overseas since the August 4th, 2020, that's almost exactly a year ago, blast that rocked the city of Beirut. Some of those leaving town, particularly those who grew up during the 1975 to 1990 Civil War, want a better quality of life and security for their children. But not everyone has the luxury of, you know what? Oh, this is our guest. Okay. Just a moment, everybody. This is live. So what can I tell you? Aaron, we're trying to get you back on the Skype. Okay. So just answer your Skype. Okay, so we'll keep trying to get you back. We'll keep trying to get you back. All right. So let me just continue with this article, and let me give our technician some additional information here how to get Aaron back with us here. All right. So here we go. Going back to the article here. When Fuad Asaf, 51 years old, first felt the tremors of the explosion that rocked the capital last August 4th, he rushed to the Red Cross in the hard-hit district of, now I don't know how to pronounce this, Gemaze, where he has volunteered as a first aid worker for the past 30 years. As he researched through the rubble for survivors and helped treat the injured, he had a, quote, revelation, a huge shock in that I realized that nothing here would change. As you all know, folks, Lebanon has been under a terrible civil war. Again, you've got Muslims living there with Christians, not getting along. You've got the Hezbollah, Muslim, who is basically ruling there with a hard fist, and everyone is afraid. And there was a civil war, and then there was a little bit of peace in the country, but now again, with the Hezbollah and Iran's tentacles in it, it's a dangerous place to be. While Beirut reeled from one of the largest non-nuclear explosions in history, a blast that killed 218 people, injured another 7,000 people, and destroyed much of the city, Asaf began making plans to leave. And this, by the way, is what many other people in Lebanon have done. All right, let's see. Do we have Aaron back with us?
Oh, we're not quite.
Aaron?
Can you put me on the phone?
Aaron, you're back with us on the air. We're on the air.
Yes.
All right, so go ahead. I'm sorry about these technical difficulties.
Okay, but I'll speak from the mobile phone.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Well, do you hear me okay? Is it clear?
Everything is great. Go ahead. We're live.
Oh, okay, very good. When we left before the break, I was starting to outline some of the serious questions that this entire development is. The first, of course, as I mentioned, is the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard Corps, out of control here, or are they very much in control with the new, more hardline President Raisi coming in on Thursday? There's been a tremendous advance in attacks since the Iranian attack on Saudi oil facilities in September 2019. And therefore that poses a very serious military operational question as to whether Western countermeasures can keep pace or are keeping pace and even exceeding the Iranian capability with drones. How the United States will react with regard to sanctions on Iran. Are they going to pull back? Is the United States going to reinstore sanctions, etc.? And a really big question in this thing is, where is Saudi Arabia? Is Saudi Arabia wavering? Everything in the recent months have shown that Iran is trying to wean Saudi Arabia away from the Abraham alliance. Let's call it that, with Saudi Arabia under the table, at the side of the table, wherever. And that's a key linchpin in this entire calculation by all parties, including Jordan, as you mentioned. So therefore, there are a whole series of questions that have to be resolved with regard to what Israel or together, and whether there will be physical support from America and the UK in what Israel has to do. There's also Israel testing its allies. How serious are they in meeting the Iranian international challenge? It's no longer a question of Iran versus Israel and let them deal with each other as they will. But the implications of this, as you mentioned in the opening of the show, are international in terms of free shipping, etc.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because we only have another 60 seconds till we go to the end of the segment. How is it going to affect people in the West and America? You said shipping costs can go up. What else?
Shipping costs can go up, insurance premiums, but price of oil, the entire security of international trade is at risk with a major thoroughfare. The Arabian Gulf, the Arabian Sea, the Straits of Hormuz, the Gulf of Oman, all of these are major shipping channels. And Iran is sending a message that it can block all of this at will with its new military technology, should it so desire.
Okay, hold it right there. We're going to be right back, everybody. Don't go anywhere.
Yes.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Ben-Tekoa, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany's but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
All right, we're back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and we're talking about Iran, which will not float your boat. And since their attack on an Israeli vessel, which killed a UK citizen and another citizen from another country, this is becoming an international story now. And we have to keep aware of what Iran is doing. Our guest is Aaron Braunstein. He is a former U.S. Foreign Service officer. He is also the head of the Jewish Covenant Alliance, and he's here talking to us about Iran and why we should be concerned. So, in the last segment, Aaron, we were talking about, for any complacent Americans or anyone in the West or anyone who just thinks that, this is a boring story, let's move on. Iran is trying to take over the leadership of the world. They want to be strong. They're trying to get nuclear weapons. We know that, even though they deny it. And we want to know, what does it mean to us? Why should we care?
Yeah. Well, we've mentioned all of the economic and security challenges that this attack on a civilian cargo ship presents. But I think the main thing that should concern every citizen of the world, and Americans and Israelis in particular, is the threat of all-out war here if Iran is appeased. If Iran is appeased, it's almost like we're back to 1938 and 39. At what point do you call a halt to the appeasement of Iran that we've seen since the start of the Biden administration? And the Iranians are testing the West. They're also testing Israel. They're testing Saudi Arabia to see whether they can wean Saudi Arabia away. If they do that, then the chances of all-out war as things escalate is very, very great. So there's a diplomatic dimension,
war
a
between
military
who and
security dimension.
War between who and who?
The war between Israel and Iran, drawing the entire Middle East into chaos.
And if the Middle East is in chaos, that means higher gas prices for the United States and other places, right?
Yeah, and then the spillover to the United States, and the American troops are still in the area, and there are a lot of proxies of Iran who would like nothing better to see America leave the Middle East with a bloodied nose or a bloodied head, and that's what's happening actually right now. So the testing is going on, and a forceful response calling Iran to order in this and telling them that they should wait for a better time because America is ready to stand with Israel against the Iranian encroachment on the entire Middle East. This can avoid war.
I want to say here,
nothing better than avoiding war. At West Point, there was a recent speech by former Secretary of State Pompeo, and he says all the military academies in America are peace academies. Brilliant speech. It can be found in YouTube.
Okay, I just want to insert here that it's not really America standing by Israel. It's America standing by America, because the Iranians call America the big Satan. We're the little Satan. America is the big Satan, and they're constantly calling for death to America, death to America.
Yes, of course. But they feel that they can bluff their way. They can intimidate Israel. They can intimidate America, and they're doing it right now, physically, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, etc. And they're testing the new government of Israel. But everyone, we're all a cargo ship was hit in the Gulf. But in a metaphorical way, we're all in this boat together, and we're either going to react appropriately, or we're going to
sink or swim,
and it should not allowed to be get out of hand by appeasing Iran. Extremely important. What the response will be and where it will come from, whether attributed or not attributed, there's so many different options that Israel has, and Israel is weighing them right now and discussing them with America. And
the UK. I would
the
imagine.
important thing is that the Iran nuclear negotiations are definitely on hold because of all of this. That there are enough people in Washington who are waking up and saying, maybe we don't have a partner here for anything except reaction. What?
Maybe, yeah. Like, especially when your partner is calling for death to America, just like Israel's so-called peace partner
along,
also.
So people just ignore it. Oh, that's just rhetoric, you know? No, you don't take it seriously. We can cut a deal,
I don't know if my friend or my business partner was saying, I'm going to kill you, and I want you dead. I would not just say that's just rhetoric. I would be highly concerned.
Well, that's the problem that the Biden administration is facing now. How are they going? What posture are they going to take, and what signals will that posture send to Iran for further mischief making? It should be every citizen of America and the world should be following this very carefully, and remembering that this is, again, as we've seen in the past, a period of testing for the West, for the democracies, for sure.
All right. So, the message here is that you should be concerned just because it may not be in your newspapers or your news media that you're watching. It's still happening. It's still growing, just like a little silent disease, except this isn't really silent. If you just open your eyes to other news sources and just do Google searches, you're going to find out what's going on.
Interestingly enough, Tamar, I opened up the New York Times this morning, and they don't cover it at all. I think the New York Times is really in a quandary. They don't know what position to take. Do they want to say something strong against Iran that they feel would encourage Israel to attack? Do they realize that America is in fact being tested, and they don't know how they should advise America to react to this, except to accommodate and appease? So that's a very telltale sign that the New York Times is behind the eight ball on this. Very interesting.
So saying all that, I just want you all to go home who are listening to the show with a new awareness and to be concerned about how the United States is going to treat Iran now in giving them these perks in any new deals that they want to make. They think that it might be good in the short term. It's not going to be good in the long term. They want your demise. Know that. And saying that, we only have about another 3 minutes left in the show. And Aaron, I know that you are doing some type of project called the Freedom Museum. I don't know anything about it. I know that you did send me something, but I didn't have time to read it before the show. Maybe you can tell me and the listeners together what exactly you're doing.
Yes, that's a very important new project. It's called the International Freedom Museum, based on the struggle in the West and the Soviet Union itself for freedom. Free them now. Freedom for Soviet Jews. And that ran from the 1960s all the way to 1990 with victory and the collapse of the Soviet Union, and to look to, first of all, to have a permanent facility, maybe starting with the website on the Internet, maybe an annex to an existing museum, or, depending on the resources available, a full museum in its own right, to point out the international dimension of this struggle, and also to show American and Jewish youth today what was accomplished by the unity of the Jewish people, and a lot of help from our friends that freed Soviet Jewry and was the one or two straws that finally broke the Soviet camel's back. Now, it's an international project because of the Jewish and Christian alliance in this struggle, and diaspora Jewry around the world, from Australia to France to UK, all across America, that achieved victory, and also the international implications of it in terms of the geopolitics of the world. That, in fact, hundreds of millions of people today owe their freedom. Those who were under the yoke of the Soviet Union, under the yoke of the evil empire, as President Reagan branded them, that they're now free in some small or large part to the struggle for Soviet Jewry. And this is a message that we want to bring to the entire world, not just by an occasional exhibit, temporary exhibit somewhere, but as an actual facility. And we're over 70 signatures on this petition. We're going for 120 at Me'ah V'Esrim, and anybody who had any part in this struggle should contact us. You can go to Covenant Alliance, one word,
okay,
.org.
Strudel.
Connect Strudel.
Okay.
CovenantAlliance.org, and we'll be in dialogue with you about it.
Okay.
Send the master description of the project, etc.
Okay, Aaron, strudel is what we use in Hebrew, and the English term for it
Arobot,
right, is the at,
Connect
right.
At CovenantAlliance.org.
Isn't that funny?
Strudel
Everyone's going to be laughing at Israel now. We name quotation marks and things after food, after desserts. Strudel.
Yeah. So I call on all your listeners, if you yourself or any person you know that is still active, to contact me
at CovenantAlliance.org. Sorry, we have to go. The music is on. Yes. We're going. Aaron
and
Braunstein.
We'll talk more about this.
Thank you so much for coming on the show and letting us know this important information and how it will affect us. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. Just click the orange button at the top of the IsraelNewsTalkRadio.home page, log in as yourself or an anonymous guest, and join in on the fun. You'll meet other listeners from all over the world who listen to Israel News Talk Radio, and you can make new friends. Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. It's the closest you can get to being in the studio with us.
We love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.